Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we are jumping yet again into first beer from a brewer. I have never had any of their beers prior. This specific brewer is called Brix, that's with an X, B-R-I-X, City Brewing. This beer is called Fit for a Queen. It is a double dry hopped double IPA clocking in at 8% ABV. Brix City is based in Little Ferry, New Jersey, and this specific beer has a lot of additives. It was conditioned on blueberry puree, has added lactose, cinnamon, and graham crackers, and the double dry hopping was done with Mosaic and El Dorado hops. So pretty big list of ingredients here. I saw this one pop up in Tavour. I did get it from Tavour. Tavour keeps adding new brewers, so I keep getting to try new beers from brewers that I'll never see while I am still currently living in Florida, almost into North Carolina, but nonetheless, let's jump right into it. Label art on this one. It's got a lady holding a pie, and frankly, the color scheme really gets you in the mood for blueberry. So blueberry is one of my favorite fruits. It's certainly one of my favorite berries, and it's an ingredient that works extremely well in a lot of different beer styles. We, a couple reviews ago, maybe three, had Hello Newman that was from Main and Mill, a porter that was a muffin top inspired from that classic Seinfeld episode Porter with blueberry that was absolutely incredible. Now we're getting into something without a dark profile, so with double dry hopped Imperial at 8% on an IPA. Blueberry really ought to lend itself very well, especially since they did add lactose. So going into it, I know what they put into it. It's going to be very dessert pastry-like, but the question is, did they use lactose to just let the added ingredients pop and taste like they should? That's the blueberry specifically, the cinnamon and graham cracker, or is it going to be sweet and not akin to a typical IPA? So we don't know going in, but it sounds absolutely awesome. I absolutely love this blue and purple and pink and magenta themed can art. It really is getting me in the mood for a beer with blueberries. So without further ado, we're gonna get it cracked and we're gonna pour in our big giant all-purpose beer glass, which works well for many, many styles. Okay, getting this poured as expected with blueberry puree. It's got this pinkish, reddish, purplish, bluish hue to it. Blueberry obviously is an ingredient that is going to add a ton of color to a beer, and I can already tell you a ton of aroma. I'm about a foot and a quarter, maybe foot and a half away from the beer. I moved it a little closer to me. I reset my set before I finally have to break it down here, but it's very pronounced. And not only can I pick up the blueberry, but I'm really picking up the Mosaic and the El Dorado hops. So it's got a blend of aromas, but we'll get right up over it properly in a minute. Visually, this one is occluded. That's to be expected. It's got lactose, blueberry puree, cinnamon, and graham crackers. So it has additives. It's not going to be crystal clear, most likely. And indeed, in this case, it is not. I cannot see a lot of existing current activity in terms of the carbonation rushing up, but it did form a very nice, thick, creamy head, and it doesn't have a big rush up, so it's probably going to hold around a while. It's no signs of collapse. So we're going to get right up over it for a proper sniff. Oh, wow, yeah. Now this beer has a very interesting aroma, interesting in a good way. So you can pick out the blueberry, it's quite prominent, but it's also got this Mosaic and this El Dorado hops. Now Mosaic is one of my favorite new hop varieties. It can impart some funky notes in the flavor profile if you go overboard, but in this one, it's very much known for imparting added blueberry aroma and flavor profile. So taking that in a double dry hopped Imperial IPA format where you're also adding blueberry extract, I'm expecting this might have some pretty pronounced blueberry flavor because it definitely does on the aroma. But I'm going to get back to it. There's other aromas here as well aside from blueberry. There's a definite slight bit of kind of resinous pine-like quality that could be coming from the Mosaic as well. It can put those off aside from the blueberries. El Dorado could be doing the same. These are pretty high alpha acid content hops as well, so this is going to be interesting to jump in. Blueberry really jumps out at you. It really does. The cinnamon and the graham cracker, I'm not really getting on the aroma, but there's also some underlying citrusy vibes. That could also come from either of the hops. I'm not getting anything particularly earthy. I'm not getting floral. None of that, but I'm definitely getting some resin and some citrus. Nothing tropical fruit either. It's very much citrus and resin. So that is the nose. And the head is settled down, but it's still holding true. So I'm going to go ahead and top this off just to where the bend in the glass begins for our tulip. So without further ado, we're going to jump right in. It looks amazing. It smells amazing. Let's just see what this one's about. Oh man. Oh boy. That is a big beer, big intense flavor, and it is absolutely incredible. This is way better than I thought it was going to be. I wasn't sure what I was going to get, and I'm very pleasantly surprised because this could have gone in many different directions, and it went in like the singular direction that, like, in my heart of hearts, I was hoping that it would go. So, okay. First, let's talk texture and weight. The weight on this one feels medium heavy. It feels appropriate for an 8% ABV IPA. It's not super heavy, but it's not light at all. It feels pretty much exactly where I would expect. In terms of the mouthfeel, there's a good bit of resistance here. It's not syrupy, it's not what I would term viscous, but you can feel the resistance when you agitate on the palate. This one doesn't really get creamy, it doesn't get silky, velvety, foamy, nothing like that. Just agitation around the palate. Coat your palate very well with what you're about to swallow and taste and experience, but you can really feel the resistance to it. I gotta say, the body and the mouthfeel on this one are exactly as I expected for top tier for this style in this ABV range, and they feel perfectly on even parity. The body matches the mouthfeel, and the mouthfeel matches the body. It's phenomenal. So, now let's talk about this flavor profile. All right, aged, conditioned on blueberry puree in a Mosaic and Eldorado double dry hopped Imperial IPA. They call it double, whatever, they're interchangeable. 8% ABV IPA. That also has added lactose, cinnamon, and graham cracker. This came out exactly how I would hope it would, and exactly how I would do the beer if I were brewing this myself with this ingredient list at home. It's not an ingredient list I would have thought of, but it's awesome, and I may have to steal some to brew just for my own pleasure at my house. So, the blueberry pops out equally as well in the flavor profile as it does in the aroma profile. This is obviously due both in part to the blueberry puree upon which it's been aged or conditioned and the Mosaic hops. Don't forget the critical point. That Mosaic hop, that is a genius, bold, intelligent, and, you know, dart thrown right at the dartboard, right at the bullseye move for doing a beer like this with this ingredient list. If you didn't use Mosaic, I would question your sanity, because it has naturally occurring blueberry aroma qualities and flavor qualities, and it works and really helps assist and make that blueberry pop. Then the second part, the lactose. The lactose does not make this beer sweet at all. It is literally here to serve the purpose of letting the additive ingredients taste like they should without their inherent natural sugars getting eaten by the yeast and converted into alcohol. So that's the purpose of the lactose, to let the blueberry taste like blueberry, the cinnamon taste like cinnamon, and the graham cracker taste like graham cracker. And I gotta say, round of applause, mission accomplished, Brix City. You did it. You did it. This is so well thought out and so well put together, and it's absolutely delicious. So, the blueberry pops. That's no question about it. The cinnamon and the graham cracker, compared to the blueberry and the hop profile forward nature, are a little bit dialed back, but they are present. They really do come on the back end after the intensity of everything kind of settles and holds and kind of plateaus for a little bit around that 5 to 10 second mark. That's when really the cinnamon and the graham cracker pop out. That's when you can really hone in on them at first. That's the very first signs. And then as it progressively goes longer into the finish, you can really pick them out even more. So there is a lot happening with this beer. It's absolutely fantastic. I really, really appreciate what Brix City did with this beer and how they constructed it. Honestly, it makes me so happy. I was hoping this is how they would do it, but every beer is a little bit different, and they did. And for my money, it's fantastic. So there's a lot of underlying other hop profiles happening. In the flavor profile, before we even talk about it, I'm going to jump back in for a second sip. There was a lot to pick apart on that first sip. We're going to let everything re-intensify. We're going to talk about anything else that I pick up, and then we'll talk about the finish. But on first sip, absolutely hats off. Bravo. Delicious beer. Extremely well put together. Extremely well crafted. I love it. So take two. We're going in now. Perfect body and mouthfeel. There's a slight suggestion of sweetness up front that really lets that blueberry pop, but it really never tastes sweet. In tandem with that blueberry, you get hop qualities that pop out, slight suggestions of citrus that could come either from the Mosaic or the Eldorado, and a little bit of floral, which is definitely coming from the Eldorado, and a slight suggestion of underlying earthiness, which could, again, either be coming from the Eldorado or from the Mosaic. But it's subtle, but it gives you all of these profiles you would expect in these hop varieties present in the beer at the same time that the blueberry is really being present, tasting like blueberry. There's even this very noticeable kick of bitters. The bitters in this one really pop in about the 3-second mark after that initial suggestion of sweetness, of the burst of blueberry settles down a little bit. Then you get into the bitters. And in this one, it's very much an earthy and a border of slightly floral profile. Slight twinge of resin around the 10-15 second mark as the intensity dials back. So when we hit that 5-second mark, that's where we taste this graham cracker. We start to get the notes of the underlying malt bill. That's also where we start to get the cinnamon to pop. So there's a lot that's happening in this beer, both in terms of the aroma and in the flavor profile. And it does take a good 15 to 20, 25, 30 seconds even for everything to fully open up, settle, and let you really explore and wrap your head around exactly what it is you're experiencing. But if you're really paying acute attention, you're going to be rewarded for your efforts because this is a very good beer. It's got a pretty good ingredients list. It's pretty complex for what they did with it. And it's got a ton of layering that ebbs and flows in and out and settles and lets you kind of hone in. Oh, there's that now. Oh, there's that now. It's one of these things that I find rewarding about trying a new beer, especially from a new brewer. And this one is so well done. For a first beer from a new brewer, I am absolutely on board with what they're about. I will be keeping my eyes out on Tavour for more offerings from Brix City, because if this is any indication of how they compose and brew their beers, they have definitely got the formula down pat. This is absolutely incredible. It is packed full of flavor and packed full of aroma and tons of layering, and it is phenomenal. Now, in terms of the finish. This is perhaps not a beer style with these ingredients and that ABV that you would expect to have a ridiculously long finish, especially since the bitters aren't super intense. IBUs, I would guess, when it finally becomes readily apparent, maybe in that 20, 25, possibly 30 range. At least that's my personal perception. Not super high. It's not super low either, but it's not super high. But this really does have a nice length on the finish. And it is driven largely by that blueberry, but there is still underlying floral and earthy bitters that are riding underneath that blueberry that do actually really extend the length on this. It's surprisingly long for the ABV range and what they did with it, but I gotta say, I am a massive fan of this beer. This is way better than I ever could have hoped, and I love it. I'm gonna take my time to sip on this beer, come up with my scores, and when we come back, we will get this one ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we're gonna get this beer ranked, this was Brix City Brewing Company, that's B-R-I-X, Brix City Brewing Company's Fit for a Queen, a double dry hopped double IPA clocking in at 8% ABV. Brix City is based in Little Ferry, New Jersey. The specific beer was aged on blueberry puree, lactose, cinnamon, and graham crackers, blend of hops, Mosaic, and Eldorado. So this was one of those beers that came very close to getting a perfect score. Indeed, there was only one category where it did not get a perfect 10 out of 10, and that was in the finish. The finish on this beer was definitely above average, but it wasn't super bitter dominant. It had a nice bitter profile. You could really get it, but it didn't really drive out. The driving factor on this beer really was that blueberry intensity. And it was surprisingly long considering the relative lack of bitters in this beer, but it wasn't super top tier. Though well above average, the finish on this one did get an 8 out of 10. It did get a perfect 10 out of 10 in all remaining categories. That's aroma, taste, body, mouthfeel, head and retention, appearance, balance, feeling, and intangible. That's my subjective category. An example of a style, which does bring the total score on Brix City Brewing Company's Fit for a Queen to a 98 out of 100. Guys, this beer was absolutely incredible. I saw this one pop in my Tavour and I thought, wow, this sounds really good, and I grabbed it. This beat every expectation I had. I was so pleasantly surprised. The blend of ingredients, the balance of this beer, the fact that the hops still played a part and it actually was still true to the style as an IPA, as well as still letting all of these additives speak. You do not get that in most beers. This was very special indeed, incredibly well balanced, and I absolutely loved it. I would recommend this to any fan of IPAs, flavored beers. Really, there's a ton of different beer lovers and like beer style preferences out there I would still recommend this to. Even if you don't like super hoppy beers, this wasn't super hoppy. It had the bitters in the right place, but it was just so flavor forward, especially with that blueberry. And then the blend of everything, the way that it worked together and being able to pick out the subtleties, it was absolutely phenomenal. I absolutely loved it. This was a wonderful first example of a beer from a new to me brewer. I will for sure be keeping my eyes out for more beers from Brix City, but I do highly recommend this one. Folks, that's today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just turn on your notifications, hit that bell icon. It's right next to the subscribe button. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.